Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of El Local. I am your host, Eddie Gonzalez, and today I'm excited because I have the one and only Gary Manfre in the house. Gary is the owner of Watsonville Coast Produce, here local company in Watsonville. Thanks for joining me, Gary.
Good morning, Daddy.
Good
Yeah,
morning.
you're
Good
welcome.
morning. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited, man, because um, we we've known each other for a while, and we have conversations.
Yes.
You know, we coach football together at PV High School. We've known each other for about 10 years or so. But this recently, we've been, I guess, getting to know each other more in a
Right.
closer level. You know, because we're coaching more closely together. And you have so much to say. You know, you right? Am I wrong?
Uh, no, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I think when you get older, you get wiser and, you've seen a lot of things. And yeah.
And I think that's important for this community, for the show, is to get someone's perspective who's been here a long time, who's been a successful business owner, to get to, I guess, share knowledge and wisdom. And so that's why I invited you on this show, because I mean, just from our conversations, I mean, you got a lot of insight, and I appreciate that, and I want people to know that insight.
Thank
so yeah. And so let's start with your upbringing here. Born and raised in Watsonville.
you. Yes, sir.
What 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 do you love about Watsonville, first of all?
Well, Watsonville is 60 plus thousand people when you look at the surrounding area. But to me, it's still a small town as when I was growing up. And I think there's a lot of people that still feel that way that have been here. Because I was born in '53, and so I can't say I remember in '53, but in the '60s, I definitely remembered. And it was it's a great little town. A lot of farming, as everybody knows, but there's other industries. When you look at Martinelli and Company's been here in Watsonville for 160 plus years. That's a long time.
Oh yeah.
Granite Construction and Granite Rock are two companies that were started in, I do believe, the early 1900s. Some of the first construction type companies.
Yeah.
And they're headquartered in Watsonville. So there's a lot of history here with more than just agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to bring that to light. Not that it isn't already known, but I know there's a lot of people, right, that don't know the history of Watsonville and don't know all these companies that have been around for a long time. And it's great to hear that. I don't know about you, but one of my proudest moments when I tell people I'm from Watsonville is when they ask me where I'm from, I tell them, hey, I'm from where Martinelli's is made, right?
No, 100%.
And I'm pretty sure, like, when you're out and about, you go to another state, maybe another country, you see a Martinelli apple cider or apple juice, and you're like, that's my hometown. That's where I'm from. That's what I'm proud of.
It's funny you say that because years ago, I'd go somewhere and where are you from? And I'd say Santa Cruz, Monterey. And then it was like I was talking to some friends of mine, and I said, no, we're from Watsonville. And I said, geographically speaking, you say Santa Cruz or Monterey because people know that,
Yeah, no
right?
area.
So I said, no, I'm going to start telling them where I'm from. I'm from Watson.
Yeah, Watson, breed and born there
And
raised.
they go, where's that? And I says, well, it's where Martinelli's apples come from. You ever drink Martinelli's apple cider? They said, sure I do. Well, it's headquartered in Watsonville. Been there 160 plus years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. Driscoll Strawberries, Cal Giant. There's a lot of ag that's also well known, right?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, we're from Watsonville.
yeah, and it's something to be very proud of.
I think so,
Yeah.
too.
Growing up here, what's your fondest memory growing up here in Watsonville? I mean, it's changed. I mean, you're born in '53. We're in 25 now. you've seen a lot of changes.
Well, yeah, when I was a kid, I think we moved into town when I was 10 years old in 1963 because we lived out at the time, which Anderson Drive, which is off of College.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, that was country. You know, I mean, that was country. So when we moved into town, I think my best memories were when the summer times, when I didn't have to go to work. That was a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew everybody in town, whether you went to school with them or not. And it was a small town. And so baseball, you go play baseball, there'd be 2 teams of baseball guys, you know. Mm-hmm. Football during the football season, going down to the high school and playing on the muddy field. Yeah. And, boy, there'd be sometimes 30, 40 guys, you know, down there. Basketball, go to the hoops at the high school. Just knew everybody that lived everywhere around Watsonville. Mm-hmm. And the old saying about, you know, today we have cell phones and everybody can video and yada, yada, yada. Back those days we had ladies sitting on their porches. You got out of trouble, guess what they did? They knew your mom. Yeah. They knew your family, or they knew somebody that knew you. Yes, Mrs. Gonzalez, Eddie's not being a good boy right now. And that's all your mom needed or your dad needed to hear, and it was like, okay. Yeah. It was just different because your parents knew where you were, and there was somebody watching you all the time. But it was fun to know that. And as I got older, then it was, you know, you get into sports,
competitive sports.
Yeah. Little League, Pony League, YMCA basketball, which you got to a certain age, it was competitive. Obviously, you get into high school and stuff. And I went to Mora High School for 3 years, and again, everybody knew everybody in this town. Mm-hmm. So when I went to Watsonville High my senior year, after they closed Mora down, I went out for football and baseball and, you know, did well. So it just a camaraderie from everybody. Yeah. And I think that in the 50s, you had a lot of nationalities that lived in Watsonville, and they all got along. Yeah. I mean, back in those days, you got in an argument with somebody. If you didn't like them, it was because normally you were playing a basketball and he fouled you. No, he didn't. You know, that kind of stuff. You might throw a few blows, but guess what? You went back to playing basketball.
Yeah. It was resolved quickly.
Yes.
Or if not, it's like, you know, you spend a couple of days or a week, you know, kind of blowing steam, and you just come back like, all right, what's up? You know? Exactly.
And but it was just a great town. And like I say, a lot of nationalities. There's a group of guys that graduated high school between the years 68 and 72. And a couple of years ago, they had a lunch and just invited, you know, hey, if you see so-and-so, you know, because 50 plus years later, you know, some people have moved on physically and, you know, they've left town or they've gone up or down, and because you never know. Yeah. And so anyway, there was probably 40, 45 people each time. We just had one March 5th. And when I look around, I mean, there's Filipinos there, there's Chinese guys, Japanese guys, there's Slavonians. Well, used to be called Slavonians, but now they're Croatian or Montenegro, whatever, you know, because of that situation. Yeah. Portuguese, Italians, Mexicans. I mean, and we're all just shooting the bull. Yeah. And having a great time.
Oh, that's great.
You know, and they do it twice a year now.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah. I think people forget that Watsonville has different cultures here.
Right.
you know, and I think that's what makes it special. I mean, it wasn't until recently where I found out, maybe a few years back, that, you know, Croatian was a big population, Japanese, you know, Filipinos is huge,
Oh yeah.
you know, Portuguese, you know, and I think people forget the diversity that Watsonville has. And I think that's very important to know, because it just shows you that, you know, Watsonville obviously is a big population of Latino, Mexican Americans, Mexican, you know, but those other cultures, like it's
And have been here for years.
generations.
Generations. Yes. Yes.
So I appreciate that, and that's cool. That is great. I think if all are listening, like, maybe start doing that. You know, don't wait 50 years to do it. You know, if you're still around, kind of start connecting, you know, with the people that you grew up with. You know, I like that lunch. You mentioned that you went to Mora
High School.
Mora High School. Where was that?
Mora High School is where Cesar Chavez Middle School is.
Mm-hmm.
We had about 200 kids there. It was started in the early 60s as a Catholic high school.
Mm-hmm.
The last few years was non-denominational. It was still owned by the Catholic Church. So in Santa Cruz, you had Holy Cross High School. Monterey, you had Junipero Serra High School. In Watsonville, you had Mora High School, owned by the diocese. And they sold them all in 1 year, 1970. I graduated in 71, so I went to Watsonville my senior year. But it was about 200 kids. I think it bounced around somewhere 200, 210, something like that. So then years later, as you know, they started St. Francis.
Yeah.
But people don't realize that there was a lot of bad blood when the people that had kids going to Mora. But not only that, they had a Mardi Gras every year to raise money for the school.
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to Watsonville, that core group of Watsonville, from all nationalities, because they always got together for Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It was a big whoop-de-doo. And people got dressed up, and it was usually at the fairgrounds, big venue, and everybody, not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people in Watsonville did a lot of work, volunteer to make it happen. Their kids didn't go to Mora. That didn't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you knew me. I asked you for help, you give me help, you asked me for help. So it was a lot of people got together for that.
Yeah.
And then they shut those schools down, they sold them. Holy Cross, I think, still has a grade school over there, kind of like Notre Dame. I'm not sure whether they sold any property or not, but they did sell the one in Watsonville to the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. So, and Junipero Serra, I think the same thing. It got sold. I'm not 100% sure, but
okay,
yeah.
That's new to me, because I didn't know. I knew Watsonville was the only high school in here in town for the longest time. I didn't know there was another high school here.
Oh, you want to go back even further? There was at St. Francis. There was a high school there at St. Francis, and that actually was across from Valley Church.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy!
Because that across was all those soccer fields.
Well, there was a gym there. You remember the old gym there? Well, no, yeah, it should have been around when you were.
Yeah, I still remember, because it was
because we used to play hoops there. But there's some buildings there right across the church from the church, and the Penny Club used to be out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a high school for years, and the name. I can't find the name right now in my files upstairs here. So, but
if anyone knows,
that was still open in the 70s. Not too many kids there. It was all boys, I do believe, and I think probably the late 70s, early 80s they shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know Mount Madonna is not.
No, Mount Madonna was started. It's probably been around 30, 40 years.
Oh, okay.
But Monte Vista was out in the Hill's where it's at now.
Okay.
So that had been around for a long time. Monte Vista's an old school.
Oh, so it's been just as long as
Yes.
Watsonville? Okay.
Well, no, Watsonville's early 1900s. Monte Vista's somewhere in the 20s or 30s it was started. But it'd been around for a long time. That's another one that's funny because when we were at Mora, we played against them in sports. Basketball, baseball, no football at that time. But we used to go out there, and it was a bad kids.
Yeah.
It was bad kids from all over that their parents sent them there. It wasn't really a reform school, but yeah, it could be a little scary going out there back in the 60s.
Yeah, kind of like all those kids that's like, oh, you got kicked out of school, we're just gonna send you over here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it wasn't that way for somebody that knows the history of Monte Vista, if it wasn't that way to us in the 60s and 70s, that's what it seemed like. I mean, you went out there and guys were riding motorcycles and had leather jackets on, and tough guys, and it's. But now, speaking of Monte Vista, as a matter of fact, I was out there coaching a softball game because I coach softball for PV, and actually we sent our kids there for high school and middle school, and it's a very nice campus. They built some more stuff on it. So, and one of our gals says, "What school's this?" And I said, "Monte Vista." And she says, "Is this a Christian school?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she goes, "My mom doesn't know it's here. My mom just became a Christian, and if she knew this school was here, she'd send me here."
Yeah, it's tucked out there. It's a long ways out in the boonies.
It is, yeah, that's for sure. But I just got a kick out of that.
Yeah,
her mom just became a Christian, and she says she'd send me to here.
Oh, that's funny. So you know, growing up, you know, you've seen changes, right? What's been the one change that's just like, whoa, like we're not in Kansas anymore, you know? But because I still remember too a lot of dirt, a lot of land. You know, I mean, Target before that shopping center became a thing, I remember it was just all dirt. It was all
cow
land.
fields, you know. Yeah. I think the biggest thing in the 70s, you know, Watsonville was at one point was well known for its apples, number one, for its frozen foods, number two, and just the world changing, the world getting bigger, so to speak, as far as population goes. We went from an agricultural town, and again, we had construction also, and apple cider, to I think we're more of a bedroom community now, and the agricultural part of it, as you said, we had a lot of dirt before. There's not that much dirt around here anymore.
Yeah. And what do you mean by bedroom community?
San Jose, you know, people getting out of the city, pushing down to Santa Cruz. It's a flow. Santa Cruz pushes over to Watsonville.
Yeah.
As you said earlier, the Mexican population here is gotten bigger, right? I mean, they're the majority, but it's like, where are all these blonde, blue-eyed people coming from?
And that's true.
I mean, I go to Target.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and plus I've been here my whole life, and I know a lot of people. Who are these people?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're good or bad. You know, that's not the point. The point is, where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Well, then you realize they're getting pushed over here because their house is now worth $1 million, and they can come to Watsonville, buy a new house or a newer house, pay $700 for it, and put some money in the bank.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how the world works now. And so you're seeing more people that you've like never seen before.
Yeah. Would you say, and this is not a sensitive topic, but it's a topic that not a lot of people, there's always a two-sided part to it, right? People see it differently. Is Watsonville being gentrified, do you think?
Yeah, you'd have to explain to
So
me what
gentrified
that is.
means it's becoming um, it's becoming more suited for wealthier people. It's becoming more suited for people of a certain ethnicity that does not necessarily mean the minority population. People with more money, right? The
Well,
higher class, because like you said, they're pushing, from San Jose to Santa Cruz, from Santa Cruz to Watsonville, and everyone that can't afford, is moving out of town. So they're making it more suitable for those people to come in.
uh, I don't, I don't see it that way
Mm-hmm.
because you forget that there's a lot of Mexicans that farm around here that have big farms
Mm-hmm.
and that are very wealthy. I think it's just more a matter of money.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in San Jose, I have a buddy that lives there. He's got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Nothing special. Bought it 45 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing special, but it's paid off, right? His house is worth probably $1.5 million to 1.75.
Mm-hmm.
He's not selling it. He's not moving. He owns it.
Yeah.
Right? So, and he's basically retired now.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to move. But it's more, I think, money. And a lot of people have money.
Yeah.
You look at Corlitas Road. There's 2 houses on Corlitas Road that have been for sale for, one of them for probably over 3 years now, hasn't sold because they're asking too much money.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who you are or whatever. You don't want that house. It's sitting right on the Corlitas Road. They're asking $2 million for it. Nobody's been in it for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
The one down the street was remodeled, redone. It's been on the market for over a year. My understanding is they want $3 million for it because it has 3 houses. No, it has a house that's not that big, with an apartment over the garage and a little house next to that.
Yeah.
And it's a very small lot. So I don't think it's just I mean, if you own a home, you're getting pushed out. If you can make a profit and go somewhere else that is not as congested,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So no matter who you are, if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And especially if somebody comes and say, "Hey, Eddie, I'm going to give you $2 million for your house," you're like, okay,
That's true.
where's the next town I can go to where I can buy a house, have no mortgage or half a mortgage what I'm already having, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all, again, about money, how much you're paying. Yeah, your taxes are going to be higher because you're buying a new house, but if you don't have a mortgage on it, taxes aren't that bad.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So I think it's for whoever.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I really do. I think we get caught up in that,
Yeah.
but when you look at the nationalities that have been here for years, most of those nationalities are represented by people that have done well.
Mm-hmm.
They worked hard and they made things, right?
Yeah.
So I think we get caught up in all the other stuff is too much.
Mm-hmm.
But and getting back to agriculture, we've lost a lot of ground. We have basically no frozen foods here anymore. We have one company down on Beach Street that still do pack. They pack specialty things,
Mm-hmm.
so they're a custom packer. And then we have one guy that does frozen spinach, but he doesn't do. It's my knowledge. It's not packaged in individual boxes. It's packaged in 55-gallon drums. You know, it's cooked or however they do, flash cook it or whatever, and then they freeze it and everything. But it's put in 55-gallon drums to ship to people that then would pack it.
Yeah.
Further. We've lost all that.
Mm-hmm.
And strawberries, they're still a big thing. They're most of the thing now when you think about it. The apple you drive around the valley, the apples are pretty much gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of apples.
Yeah.
Gone,
So what would you say? Because we're gonna get into Watsonville Coast produce. Because you're the middleman for produce, right? So from your experience so far, what direction do you see the agricultural what do you see the agriculture going in the city? Like, is it going to decline? Do you think it might go up a little bit more? Kind of be steady, as far as the lack of apples or more of strawberries. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, you know what? You're asking me. I'm gonna give you
your opinion.
Definitely my opinion.
Yeah, and it's your opinion. I just want to let everyone know it's know.
This is 2025. I've said to people that I don't believe there'll be any agriculture around here by the year 2040. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion. There'll be some strawberries and raspberries, but I just think it's difficult for farmers. A lot of people think, oh, you're a farmer. You drive around in a nice car. You're rich. And sometimes that's a sideshow. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I know, I think you and I talked when we originally got together, kind of talking a little bit. I always thought farmers were rich, not because my family was farmers, but most of the guys that farmed or were in agriculture drove in, a Cadillac or a Continental. But it was all show. I mean, not that they didn't make money. That's not what I'm saying. But it just was a facade.
Yeah.
And they like nice cars. And when they had a good year, they'd go out and buy a new one. Mm-hmm. Well, if they didn't buy a new one for the next 5 years, they didn't have a good year. They still had a Cadillac.
Yeah.
Right? But I just believe that the markets, the regulations on these people, there's so many costs to growing an acre of anything nowadays. Friend of mine grows organic. The organic certification this last year, they came to him, we want $10,000. Excuse me? Yeah, we want $10,000 for your certification this year. He says, I didn't make anything last year. Small farmer.
Yeah.
Bust his ass. He says, okay. Well, he doesn't have a certification. He told me. He said, Gary, I had a terrible year. But that's, maybe 5 years ago to get that was $1,000.
Yeah.
The fees are going here. The fees are going there. Chemicals. You can't use this chemical. You can't use that chemical. So what's going to happen when you don't have agriculture?
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that I'm wrong. But I've just seen it over the years. Yeah. And what other crop, if people can't or won't grow strawberries or raspberries or blackberries anymore, what are you going to grow around here? Yeah. The Salinas Valley that grows a lot of the vegetables. And last year I'd drive down the valley just sometimes going to a softball game or this or that, but there was a lot of dirt last year that was dirt. Mm-hmm. And farmers were not farming because they couldn't get anything for their product.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And if it was a great business, everybody'd be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. that is 100% true.
Yeah.
On a little bit of a lighter note, did you know, I was told by my friend that the first crop in Watsonville was a potato?
I'm not sure about Watsonville, but I do know, the Salinas Valley, and I think in Watsonville, the Pajaro Valley, It was sugar beets and potatoes years ago, is what I was told.
Yeah.
My grandfather, who came down from San Francisco in 1924 to Moss Landing, the reason he came down was they were from a farming family up in Colma.
Mm-hmm.
He would see these big white potatoes on the train, in the train cars coming up to the city. And he was just, how do they grow potatoes like that?
Yeah.
They're big, they're beautiful. So he came down, and then he bought some land out in Moss Landing. He never grew potatoes there. But in the Salinas and Watsonville, yeah, there was potatoes and sugar beets.
Yeah.
A lot of sugar beets, because they had sugar beet plants over in Salinas. So that's what it was years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Vegetables came probably somewhere in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because when she told me, I'm like, no way. You know, growing up, you're like, oh, strawberries, you know, apples. But I'm gonna try to find someone to give me the more of the history of Watsonville's agriculture and everything. So you said that your grandfather came out here, right? And you come from a farming family. How did that start? Like, what's that story? Your grandfather came.
Well, he was born in 1898 up in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
His parents came from Italy, and they just got into farming up in Colma, which is by Daly City. And, you know, he went to, what did he say he went to? He went to school till he was like second grade or third grade, and then you went to work. Mm-hmm. He went to school long enough to learn reading and writing, and arithmetic. And they all farmed, and they had 2 stalls at the San Francisco Produce Market. And like I said, he got just, these potatoes were just so beautiful, he had to go see where they came from.
Yeah.
And in 1924, he came down to Moss Landing and bought 5 acres with a couple partners, and they started farming, and he bought out his partners and bought more land and bought more land and bought more land, and he loved to farm, mm-hmm. loved to grow things. He was known as the Radish King.
Oh.
Because he planted radish every day, and 30, depending on the time of year, 28 to 27 to 32 days later, you were picking radishes, and we were selling those. So, he just loved farming. And his brother came down a few years after he did and bought some land right next to our ranch, the Capurro Ranch, and his name was John Capurro. Mm-hmm. And then he just bought some more land. So they had 2 ranches that were next to each other in Moss Landing. My dad got into it when he married my mom, and obviously my mom's brother was the younger of the 2 kids, and he farmed all his life. And then the grandkids got into it, and now my brothers my cousin, they're basically retired, semi-retired. Mm-hmm. We leased the property out to a strawberry grower, and it's just an awesome thing. So
so it's a full family of it, you know. Business, and you guys are just all into it. I want to get into your business, Watsonville Coast Produce. I know we talked last time a little bit. You gave me a little bit of history of how it happened, and so you graduated from 71,
right? High school.
Watsonville High School. And did you know at that time what you wanted to do? Because you're 18, and how old were you when you started working and bought Watsonville Coast Produce?
21.
So those years in between, what were you trying to figure out? Because you didn't go to college, right?
No, I can say that I signed up for a course at Cabrillo.
Uh-huh.
I probably ended up going to, I probably saw that classroom 3 times.
Yeah.
And then that was enough for me.
Okay. So from 18 to 21, what was that part of your life? What was that journey?
Well, we worked at the ranch as kids during the summers and Saturdays. Since the time we were all about, there was 5 grandsons, and so the grandsons, we worked. Some of the granddaughters did, but the 5 of us were expected to work, the boys, and we did. So when I graduated, I didn't really. College wasn't my thing. School wasn't my thing. So I just went to the ranch full time then. About a year later, I left the ranch and I went to work for George and Phillips Trucking, which is in Watsonville, with some friends of mine. So I did that for 2 seasons. Followed the lettuce down south into Arizona because I worked at the coolers with the friends. And we did that. And then I went back to the ranch when I was about 20. And just things didn't work out. I was not in the right pecking order, so to speak. So my dad came to me and said, there's an opportunity. Your uncle and I will put you in business if you want this opportunity. And that's how it happened.
And so how did that conversation go, right? You said like your dad came up to you. Were you hesitant? Were you just like, well, what's this business, you know?
I don't care what nationality you are. The pecking order is the pecking order for kids. And a lot of those is if the girl's first, she's second, basically, when that first son is born, right? It's just the way it's been. But anyway, so where I was at when I came back to the ranch, I should have been doing something different. I mean, I went back to doing what I was doing when I left, which not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when my dad came to me, he knew. He says, I know things aren't kind of what you're thinking. What do you want to do? Because my mom and dad, they saved all this money to send their 4 kids to college, and they only paid for a year and a half of college between the 4 of us. So they saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
So anyway, I knew Coast Produce because I loaded their trucks. They bought from us, they're a little local wholesaler, so they bought from us. So I knew the guys that owned it and everything. They were all family friends, And I said, well, I'd like to do that. I'll give it a try. Excuse me.
So Coast Produce was around before.
Coast Produce was started in 1937.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then in 1974 is when we took over.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad and my uncle put myself and my dad's youngest brother, my uncle, his side of the family. My Uncle Bud and my dad was the Capurro side. They signed the papers for the business, for the loan and stuff. And the rest is, as they say, is history.
Yeah. So you're 21. You're a business owner now, right? You're going into business. You purchased a business. What do you do? What's the first thing you do? Like,
first thing I did was Monday morning, I was at work at 3 o'clock in the morning, because the produce business is an early morning business in the wholesale end of it. You got to load the trucks. You got to be out of town by 5 o'clock. Back in those days, we delivered to Salinas, a little bit to Monterey, and then Santa Cruz, Watsonville, but basically just Santa Cruz County and little part of Monterey County, Castroville and Salinas. Yeah, I just went to work and listened to Louis was one of the guys that the original owners, Louis and Steve. Well, Louis stayed with us. And he showed me the ropes, and he taught me what it was like to. It was an old building. You think this is small, Eddie?
Yeah.
This is about a quarter of the size of the shed that we were in, and the shed was leaning like this. And the floor, I mean, it was old.
Yeah.
And we were only there for 3 months because we knew we had to leave, so because they were tearing it down.
Yeah.
And after that first day of work, Louis says, "Okay, we're going to clean up." I didn't say a word to Louis. I'm looking around going, this place is about ready to fall down, and we're going to clean it up. Excuse me, right?
Yeah.
So he showed me how to clean the way that they did it. And I never forgot that. And he said to me, if you keep things clean, people will see that cleanliness. They'll see that. That's what they'll see. That's their first impression.
Yeah.
So he didn't say, I mean, his thought process, what he was telling me was, yeah, this is a rickety old barn that's about ready to fall down. But if somebody comes in here right now after we're done cleaned up and they see this place, they're going to go, wow, this place is nice, even though it's not nice.
Yeah.
You know? So people to this day, I go out on the floor and I'm picking up little pieces of stuff here and there. Why do you do that? Because that's what Louis told me to do.
Yeah.
Just because I own the business doesn't mean I don't listen to other people.
Yeah.
Right? So when people come into our building, it's 26 years old now, and when they come in, they're looking around. They go, "Wow, this is a really clean place." That's their first impression. It's produce. It's food.
Yeah.
That's what you want their first impression to be. I would think.
Yeah. It's
right?
fun. It's interesting because like my dad, growing up, would tell me the same thing. You know, yeah, the places that we lived in weren't the best, right? But it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter. You got to be clean.
Right.
There's one thing about being, like what we said at the time, like, dirty poor or clean poor.
Right.
Right. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like we may not have the fanciest this, we might be in a small shack, whatever, but you organize, you clean, you know, and you keep that mentality. Cause if imagine you don't have much, but you're all dirty and it's filth and all that, then that's tears people away. But if you're struggling, you don't have the best things, but you're clean, organized, then that speaks volumes.
Hey, 100%.
Yeah.
You can live in a 20-room mansion, but if you're a bunch of slobs, people come into your house and it's dirty, you're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
But you go into somebody's house, 1-2-bedroom house with a bathroom, but it's nice and clean. It's got little pictures here, little things there. You go in, you go, wow, this is a nice place.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that really feels comfortable when the place is dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So your daddy's 100% correct.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that's it. And so that's the way we've always tried to be, you know? And like I say, especially because it's food.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because that same Louis is the one that you had mentioned that you guys were sweeping. So, right? Like, you know, I was like, why are we sweeping the dirt floor?
Right. And he had the coffee can.
Uh-huh.
And the coffee can, he cut 2 holes in it so he could put his fingers in there to hold it. So it was the dirt on the floor, you know, it was a wood floor, but it was just, I mean, it was old.
Yeah.
And there's mud from the produce and there's dirt, and, you know. So anyway, he says, broom over there. So I brushed the broom, and the dust would come over because it was dry at that time, end of the day. And he says, okay, you see how that dirt's coming back over? And believe me, I had done enough gardening work at our house, and I've done enough sweeping. I knew, you know, what he was talking about. I said, right. And he says, okay, so that's why we got the coffee can. We fill it up with water, and we just sprinkle the water. Don't douse it, we just sprinkle it. Okay, now brush. Well, then you get that collection of water, little dirt. So then it balls up a little bit, but now it doesn't. You don't have dust flying.
Okay. Yeah.
And we cleaned that floor. We cleaned it, and that's a lasting impression in my mind. Because
Louis still
50,
lives on.
50 years later, it still today is true what was true back then. Yeah. That the first impression is your best impression. As the old saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. You know? No, you got to read the book first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And we do a lot of business with schools and restaurants and retailers, and we try to get our customers to come visit us because we do a lot with food safety. In today's world, it's all about food safety, which is another big thing for strawberry growers, apple. I mean, more cost, right? I mean, I think we've always had food safety because farmers are just that way. They don't want their product going out dirty.
Yeah.
They want it looking nice. But anyway, Eddie, you might have to edit this part. I brain farted.
You're good. You're good. I do want to ask though. What was that like? The feelings, because you're coming in, right? You're 21. You're a business owner, and you got guys who've been working there. You know, who are obviously more experienced than you.
100%.
And that could go either way. It could be good or it could be bad.
You know, the thing about back in those days, we were a different breed of person. I mean, you come in at 3 o'clock in the morning, there were the guys that still had a hangover. But when they hit work and got a cup of coffee and started sweating it out, that's how they did it. I think that I earned their respect because I didn't know what I could use a hand truck. I could obviously lift. I've loaded trucks for years, so I knew how to work. And it was just putting orders together and figuring all that out.
Yeah.
But I think the bottom line was I earned their respect because I worked. You come in and you work. And even though I was one of the new owners, I was the youngest person in the room. And I'm going to go in there and tell them how to do their job. I'm, as I like to say sometimes, I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid. I'm not going to tell them how to do their job that they've been, because a lot of those guys, there was only like 7 of us or 8 of us, but there was guys in there that have been doing that for 25, 30 years. That was their job. And so, I think it took maybe a couple months, and they saw what I was about. They saw what my uncle was about. And we were hardworking guys, and we wanted to do things right. Yeah. And they took us right in and showed us the ropes. Right. Yeah.
What was early on one of the most difficult parts about running that business? What struggles did you face?
Well, my uncle, my dad's youngest brother, that was a partner, was in the insurance business and had been that was a career for him. And he wanted to try something new, and 18 months later, it just didn't work out. They were calling him every month, wanting him to come back to the insurance business, and the way it turned out is 18 months later, he went back to the insurance business, and so my dad and my other uncle never worked a day there. They just put us in business, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm 22, and I'm the boss. There every day.
Oh, wow.
And business had a little downside, and it was tough. It was tough because back in those days, you actually had to sign a check to pay for stuff. And at 22 years old, I'd signed a check for $80,000 or $90,000. My God, man. I could have bought 2 houses or 3 houses and 20 cars with that much money, right?
Yeah.
And I'm 22 years old going, because you paid by the month, 1 month, and then you paid by the 10th. And I'm signing these checks going, what am I doing? You know, in business it turned down a little bit. We'd lost some money, and I'll be damned though. The people there, I said, we got to get better. We got to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, you know, things happen. You get
Yeah.
rain, you lose crops, you can't get product, you lose sales, yada yada yada. So I had some good people that helped me get through it. I had friends that during the winter would come work for me, help me out, because I was not gonna lose something that my dad and my uncle got me into.
Yeah.
Because I had to show them that I was just as good as the rest of those guys that were out there. And so that's what drove me, is my pride, I guess you would say.
Yeah. The hard work ethic.
Yeah.
Not wanting to let them down.
Right, and that came from both my grandfathers, too. You know, both my grandfathers, my dad, my uncle, I mean, all my family, they were all hard workers. And I wasn't the sharpest tack in the room, but school-wise. But I could figure things out, you know. I could well, and I had, like I said, I had friends that came work for me, and during the winter, and they helped me out because you know I needed help, and they got paid. It's not like I didn't pay them, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If they saw I was in a tough spot, they'd come and help me. Yeah, just put a lot of hours in, and over the years, a lot of great people work for me.
Yeah.
You can't do anything by yourself. No. I mean, you can write. Well, no, you can't write a book by yourself because you have to have somebody to edit. You have to have somebody to read it. You know,
you're only as strong as your team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're only as strong as your team, the people around you. And my grandfather Capurro told me that when I told him that I was leaving the ranch and going into business, and he said, "Take care of the people that take care of you." I said, okay. But I had to think about that one. It didn't click right away because I hadn't started there yet, so I really wasn't sure what he was talking about. But as we grew the business, then I realized what he was talking about is take care of them because they got your back.
Yeah. And I think that's very important to know, not just as a business owner, but as just like anyone that is doing anything worth doing, right?
Oh, right.
Because, and I'll give you an example, like where I work, right? I work with kids, and sometimes you don't feel the love, you know, from management or, you know, superiors, and sometimes work declines, you know, morale, you know. But I there have been some people that I do work with that they take care of us, take care of me, right? Same thing with like I saw this thing, this video of going to coaching, right? And they're talking about how like the coach, it's all about the people he surrounds himself with, right? Because you're only as good as your coaches, your assistant coaches, and sometimes you gotta like show them love. However way mean that is, right? I mean, if it's like, hey, buy them donuts, take them out to lunch, hey, you know, having something, doesn't have to be whatever it is, something small, right? You have to take care of
Pat on the back.
Pat on the back.
Yeah.
You know, hey, have a conversation, have a, you know, one-on-one, and maybe that's all they need, you know, because at the end, like, they got your back, and I think that's very important, you know.
Well, and I think that when you look at successful coaches and that type of thing, anybody's successful. Nobody can do it by themselves. They might have an idea. Jeff Bezos had an idea, right? He didn't create Amazon by himself. He had that idea, but he had to find people that could help him get that idea across, right? And any successful businessman or coach or whatever, they have to be willing to share the wealth, so to speak. And the wealth is more than just money. It's, hey, good job today, great job today. You know, we kicked ass on that project or whatever, and pat them on the back. I had a football coach at high school at Watsonville my senior year. He would, oh, Eddie, he'd stick his foot in your ass quicker than anything else. But he was a line coach. And when you walked off the field at the end of the day, he made sure that he patted everyone on the ass or the back and said, great job today. Hey, good hustle out there. Always left us with a positive note. God rest his soul. I love the guy. I would have done anything for him, you know, because he was so positive to me. Now, some of the other guys might not have felt that way, but I mean, he would get everything he could get out of you that day. But he realized we're all different, we're all human, and we're all going to have a different level that we can give each day.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. And coaching with you, you understand. I mean, I don't know if you see me or not, but there's kids. I mean, I know right away whether they're going to have a good practice or not, just the way they're looking.
Yeah.
And then they get that sad face. And, hey, okay, something happened today. You got something going on out here. Leave that outside. Let's have some fun today and do this here.
Yeah.
Now sometimes it's physical where they can't give it all. Well, then tell coach. You gotta. They think, oh, if I tell coach, he's gonna think I'm weak. No. What can you do today? Give us what you have to give us today, right?
Yeah.
Because every day is different.
Yeah. I think back to one of my coaches too, right? Honest. I mean, hard ass, old school. But hey, when he loved you up,
Right.
You know, and it's a skill. You have to learn it. You can't, you know, some it comes naturally and you build off of it, but some people just don't know how to do that. And I think that's very important. And I like that you do that, you know, when it comes to business.
Well, I think it's life. I coach softball at PV, like I said, and this year we have 8 freshmen that came out to play softball. To my knowledge, not one of them has ever played softball in their lives. So you teach them how to throw, you teach them how to catch. You have to teach them the basics, right?
Yeah.
They are sponges. It's a pleasure to coach them because they look at you in the eye. They want to absorb. They want to get better. They want to learn the game. Eddie, we're making catches in the outfield. We got beat 20-0 on Monday, and we had nothing but fun, and they learned a lot. Not one sad face.
Yeah.
It's not about wins and losses. In life, we go through wins and losses all the time.
Yeah.
We're all competitive people. When it comes to competition, do I want to win? Of course I do.
Yeah.
But like I tell the football players and we tell the girls, you girls haven't played. We start 5 freshmen. You never played before. We don't expect you to run down a fly ball going up against the fence and turn around making a throw home to catch the runner off there. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. We just want you to catch the ball.
Yeah.
And then get it back in the infield. And so wins and losses. Do you win every day? No. Do you lose every day? No. You hope to win more than you lose in the day, right? Some days are better than others.
Yeah.
It's like coaching football. If you get outworked by the other team and you don't leave it out on the field during game day, you can't expect to win.
Yeah.
Because you're not giving it your all. And I think that's what we have to do, you know.
Yeah.
It's give it your all every day. You're going to lose some. Hopefully you win more.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Because in life, it's a guy blocked a punt against Harbor at Cabrillo College when I was a senior in high school. I picked it up, probably on the 15-yard line, ran it in for a touchdown. Well, you know, as you get older, Yeah, I picked it up on R15. I ran 85 yards, and I had 3 guys on my back. And then my buddies are there laughing, Yeah, right? So it's yeah. As you get older, you have a little bit more fun with it and stuff, but it's still at the end of the day, you surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
You can be successful, but you have to make them successful also.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah. And that's a testament, because look at where your business is at now. It's grown.
We've grown quite a bit, but the last 5 years have been really tough, and we're going through some hard times. It's the lot of rain we had a couple winters ago. Again, farming's all about, if it's all perfect, but it's never perfect.
Yeah.
And I rely on farmers, right? So the weather is, even down in Mexico when you're pulling out during the winter time through Yuma, we get stuff from all over the world. So it's and there's tough years and there's good years. We just had a string of tough ones, but I got a lot of great people that work for me. They're being part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that's how you, again, you become successful because you're making other people successful. And that's the thing. And it doesn't matter who you are. You willing to work?
Yeah.
I mean, Eddie, you're working every day with the kids. Is that a glorious job? No. But at the end of the day, you've done something good for somebody. We hire people in these last 5 years, and it's been like, well, yeah, I need a job. I need this. I need that. Okay, good. Hey, you start Monday morning.
Yeah.
Tuesday morning, they're not there. Wednesday morning, they didn't show up on Monday, And Sergio will look at me and he goes, they didn't show up. I mean, what does that tell you about somebody? Well, you really needed that job?
Yeah.
Or just because mommy said you're not going to get your iPad or something because if you don't go look for a job,
Yeah. That's funny you say
that.
Yeah. Have you noticed the shift or a change in workers over the years? I mean, you like you said, you offer a job, they don't show up.
I got a guy, young gentleman, went to work for us probably 10, 12 years ago. Great kid. He stepped up the ladder because he's a hard worker, shows initiative. He's one of my key guys now. And a couple years back, he came to me and he said, my cousin wants me to take a job over the hill, get into a different craft and take a job over the hill and everything. And I said, oh, good for you. I'm the type of guy, Eddie. Do I want to lose a great worker? No. But I can't pay the way some people can pay. And if you want to do better for your family, you got to take that job, right? But I also say that what you're making, what you're going to make, and if you have a family, what does that affect your family? I like to say we're a family-friendly company because I built that company on family values. And he said to me, well, I don't really want to do that. I said, because, hey, I'm just telling you, you're going to be going over the hill. You got little kids, you're going over the hill. How much time is that taken away from your day? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, yeah, I don't want to do it because he's very involved with his kids, and he has great kids. That's that brain fart. Re-ask me the question again, Eddie. Come on, bro. I didn't have enough coffee this morning. No, because I know what I was. Okay,
yeah,
so I know
the workers, the ethic, and
so,
everything over the
years. So anyway, he comes to me, and I said, well, I appreciate it. I mean, I told him, I said, you got to do what's right for your family. Yeah. And then he came back a few weeks later and said, I want to stay. And I said, good, because I want to keep you.
Yeah.
And but anyway, we were having a conversation, and if you don't like this guy when you meet him, it's kind of like, wow, because he's he's a people person.
Yeah.
I says, we got to talk, and I said, well, you know, I want you here, and it's not like I'm telling you to leave, but you know, what was kind of like, what got you to kind of work your way up? Excuse me, we're just having a conversation. He says, Gary, he has tattoos on his neck. He says, people looked at me, they weren't going to hire me. I said, why not? We call him Tommy Hilfiger because he always reps Tommy Hilfiger clothing, and he looks like a male model, you know. And he says, well, I got tattoos, you know, here and this and that. So, well, not a lot of people say so, you know. I go, well, that doesn't make the man, right?
Yeah.
And so it just that a lot of people do that. I think it's more common today that it's okay to have tattoos. But, you know, he just really appreciated the fact that we gave him a shot and we took him on board, you know. And again, I look at people and judge them by their character. That's all. If you want to come here and work hard, because you asked me about people.
Yeah.
But see, that's one. The other 99 didn't show up for work on Monday. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Sergio says, you know, like he says, it costs us money to board somebody on, you know, bring them on. I mean, it's like over $500 a person when you hire them. And then they don't show up for the first day.
Yeah.
You're out $500.
Yeah.
See, people don't understand that. Or they apply with us, they apply with somebody else, they hear from us, so they go, okay, I'll take this job. And in the meantime, this guy calls him back and says, and it's going to pay him $1 more an hour. You know, okay, good. I understand. Go to that one. Have the cojones to call us and say, hey, Sergio, thank you for the opportunity. I applied at another place. I'm going to go there. They're paying me a little bit more money. It's a phone call. It is a big deal on our side.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize, oh, they spent $500 to get me to go to work here. Yeah, there's all these regulations and rules that you have for hiring people.
Yeah, yeah. and I think that this younger generation, like, I think they need to understand that, right? And I think there's a lot of people say that they blame COVID, right? Because like, oh, COVID messed people up. Like, nah, I think it was even before COVID where you need to, I guess, man up and communicate.
It's entitlement.
Yeah.
People think they're entitled. Mm-hmm. When you teach kids that everybody gets a trophy just for showing up, what are you really teaching them?
Yes.
The world is a big bad place, man.
Yes.
I don't care where you come from, Eddie.
Yes.
You can make it or you can break it.
Yeah.
You have that opportunity. If you're physically and mentally able, when you get out of high school, you have choices that you make in this life, right or wrong. Mm-hmm. If you want to be treated with respect, give people respect. Yeah. It's like I said, people don't realize the work it's costing. It costs a lot of people when they hire people. You got to send them to the doctor. You got to send them here. You got to have them test for this, test for that. It's time that your HR department's putting in. Yeah. That's a business. They got a lot of money. They don't need, you know. Yeah. That's the mentality. No. Have some common courtesy and use your common sense. If I want Eddie to be nice to me, I need to be nice to Eddie. Yeah. I can't be a dick to Eddie and expect Eddie to be nice to me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, you mentioned like we teach kids because we give everyone a trophy now.
Right.
You know, I saw this video and I'll send it to you. This kid, his mom is recording a young boy playing basketball and he's walking off and he has a trophy, a second place trophy, and he throws it away. Threw it away. It's like, why'd you throw it away? Mom's recording, because I lost. What's this trophy? What am I going to do with this trophy? I lost. we're in a championship game and I lost. You know, that's why a lot of in college football, a lot of teams don't make it to the national championship, but they're all getting rings for this bowl game, and having a ring used to mean something. You
Right.
won a championship.
Right.
You earned the right to wear a ring. But now, it's like the Fiesta Bowl. It's not even the national championship. They get a ring. It's like the little small little bowl, little Caesar's bowl, and they get a ring. I was like, no, and I think that's the issue with this generation and just coming up. It's just like, you're right. You expect things are gonna be handed to you. You gotta work for it.
100%. So I think there's, people want to protect their kids. We all want it. People that have kids, you want to protect your kids.
Yeah.
But protecting your kids and teaching them are two different things. Mm-hmm. And you got to realize that at a certain point in life, your teaching of them never stops, but it gets less and less. Mm-hmm. Because they're not around, they're with their friends, they got married, they got a wife, now they got to experience that together. Mm-hmm. You can advise them, but you're not really teaching them anymore.
Yeah.
You get them to a certain age, and then advice comes along, which I guess some people say, well, that's teaching. Well, okay, fine, but you know what I mean? We have people that are just babying their kids, and they're 22 years old. They're still at home, which that's fine. I lived at home when I was 22, but I worked every day.
Yeah.
I got up early in the morning, went to work every day.
Yeah.
And these kids don't.
Yeah.
And what you're not helping them, because eventually the big bad world is out there, and Watsonville's a small cog in that world. I still think it's a great cog in that world, but it's still a small thing, right? So you venture out, how do I do this? How do I do that? And people haven't taught their kids that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they're not doing them any favors.
Yeah. And it shows, right? Like you said, and it shows, like, as a business owner, right? Like, sometimes you get those kids and it's just like, whoa,
Another one, Eddie. So I had a couple ex-football players for PV that didn't make it for whatever reason. And this is something that I tell people. I taught my kids this. I got those on.
You're good.
In life, you played football for Aptos High School. Mm-hmm. You played against Watsonville. You played against all these teams. You could play against somebody that played for Monterey and think, I'll never see that guy again in my life. And let's say you go to Cabrillo College, and then you look over like this, and the guy that you were all pissed off at Monterey High, he's standing next to you. What the fuck you doing here?
Yeah.
And you go, I'm playing football. You never know who you're going to cross paths with.
Yeah.
Right? 2 years from now, I might be working for you in your company. I don't know that. You don't know that. Mm-hmm. But we know each other. And if that opportunity comes about, it could be possible, right?
Yeah.
Anything's possible. So anyway, this kid comes to Coast Produce in Watsonville Coast Produce, and he applies for a job. Well, I saw him, and I said hello to him, and I knew right away that he'd be one of those one-day-and-done guys, Mm-hmm. And we were hurting, so we needed bodies. But I went up to my HR, to Rafaela, and I said, hey, so-and-so, applied for a job. Yeah. I said, I didn't open my mouth. I just went,
Yeah.
Because I knew this kid was not gonna make it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna spend the company's gonna spend $500 to bring this guy in, and he's gonna stay here for a day or two. I mean, your gut still tells you.
Yeah.
Right? Sure enough, they hired him, and sure enough, he worked like 2 days and didn't show up anymore.
Yeah.
You can't burn bridges. You can't, because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Yeah.
Joseph and Jared, they played against a kid from Aptos in Little League, all through high school, basketball, baseball, football. And that rivalry, right?
Yeah.
And I said, hey, never burn a bridge, boys. You don't know what's going to happen down the road. He ended up going to Minnesota with this kid and went to school with them for 3 years back there. They lived together.
Yeah.
But he was a rival at Aptos, right?
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that always leave people with a good feeling about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that hard to do, Eddie.
No, for sure. Yeah. It's all about that connection, all about the communication, that work ethic. Leave them with wanting more. I get that. I get that 100%.
Yeah.
And so, and you've had so many employees over the years, like you said.
Well, over 50 years, I once in a while, because I'm a numbers guy, and I'll be doing something, and I'll be looking like at how many employees we got or something, and I'll just kind of sit back and I'll go, wow. So in 50 plus years, we started out, there was about 7 of us. And then there was 10 of us, and then there was 12 of us. And then there was, after about, probably about 6 or 7 years, we were really growing the company. I'd have to look back and see, but we probably were around 50 employees, and then the highest point we were ever at was 105. So, but over all those years, 500-600 people maybe.
Yeah.
Some one-dayers and some, God, I've been blessed with people that have been with me 40 plus years. I have a lot of people that have been with me 25 plus years. It's my thing was, you won't get rich working here. Your paycheck will be ready on Tuesday, every Tuesday. You have health insurance and a 401k plan. That's what we got,
Yeah.
They had, days off and sick leave and all that. Mm-hmm. But, that's something that we have people that have been there so long, they still have the old sick leave. So if they don't miss a day of work, and once they've accumulated their what they can accumulate, if they don't have that next year, if they don't have a day off for sickness, they get a week's pay. And we got guys that once they got there, they pretty much every year gotten that extra check each year because they don't take any time off, because those are workers. Those are guys that, I got little sniffles. No, I got to do my job. And
that's old school right there. That's old school work ethic
right
there.
Right. I got sick in February, and a little flu. Boy, it just knocked me out, Eddie.
I remember.
I just didn't have any energy. It took me over 3 weeks to recover from this. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go to work for a week. And my wife was talking to one of her friends, and she said, "Oh no, Gary's been sick." And I'm laying in bed at this point, and she tells her friend, "Oh yeah, no, he's really sick." And they go, "What do you mean?" She says, "He never misses work because he's sick." Eddie, I go on vacation. If I come back on a Wednesday, I'm at work on Thursday. That's just me.
Yeah.
And am I tired? Yeah, but I got to get to work. I got to see my guys and my gals down at work.
Yeah.
That's my life. And so it's funny. She says to her friend, "Yeah, I know he's sick because he didn't go to work."
Oh, you got to call the search and rescue.
Yeah, right.
What's a typical day for you at work? Like, what is a typical day, a typical week?
Okay, so where I'm at today is I go in the morning. I usually get there 6:15, 6:30. I go down and get some coffee, and I see my guys that are there. There's a few people in sales, few of the buyers are there. Um, what I do now more than anything is just try to rally the troops, so to speak, each day.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know how we're doing or not doing. I mean, everybody kind of knows we've had some bad years. And, well, the COVID years, I don't know anybody that made money in the COVID years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was just something that was unfortunate. But, guys, what can we do better today than we did yesterday? I mean, I'm coaching. That's what I'm doing. Running the business, but, you know, it's dealing with banks, dealing with people that way. But I've got a good crew, great crew, as a matter of fact. And it's just trying to, what can we do? How can we get better?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just on a daily basis. Yesterday, I met with a couple of guys, and hey, we got to change this up. But you know, I don't rule by authority. I rule with help from my employees.
Yeah.
They're the ones doing it. Eddie, it's like you and I coaching football. You teach them, you teach them, you teach them. If they don't execute, you can't go out on the field and do it for them.
Yeah.
So you got to find out why he's not executing. You can't just yell at him and say, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. No, what's going on out there? Why did that truck take so long to get to that delivery? Well, when he got back, he said there was an accident on the road, so he was backed up for 35 minutes. Well, you teach a guy, let's say your offensive line, and you're teaching him how to block, right? Why aren't you doing it? Coach, that guy's not where you said he'd be.
Yeah.
and you know what I'm talking about,
yeah.
right? Because that, he moved over. So then you have more teaching to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I do a lot of. But like I said, I take the advice. As the head coach, as a business owner, I feel, you got to gather all the information you can to make the right decision. Mm-hmm. And people that just try to sit there and say, oh, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way, and they've never done the job, sometimes, you know, that's not good.
Yeah.
I don't think. Because then people get upset. And it's like you said earlier, if you're doing a good job coaching, really the head coach, you're right, he's as good as his assistants. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's not as good as his assistants because he's not listening to them.
Yeah.
Same thing with the business owner. I've been out there. I set up orders for years. I delivered for years. I bought for years. I've sold for years. I've cleaned the toilets for years. I've done everything.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to tell me, oh, I can't do that. Oh, why not? 20 years ago when it was my job, I thought I did pretty good at it.
Yeah.
You used to do that? Yeah, because that's how I learned. I did start at the bottom and learn my way up.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, and again, going back to my dad, because he used to be a business owner. He used to, off of Mount Madonna on the base, those fields down there. You know, my family's been in agriculture for years. So I grew up on the fields, the raspberry fields, strawberry fields. So I know. And one of the things that my dad really instilled in me, and I think for me as, you know, to be a leader, as a leader in anything that I do, and he said, you are as good as a leader as you are a follower. In order to lead, sometimes you got to follow.
Right.
And then not just like follow blindly, like, you know, people.
No.
You know, you got to follow your team. You got to sometimes you got to take a step back, you know, and get in the trenches, you know, And I think that's very important. And that's what you're pretty much telling me that you've done, and that's why you've been
How do you
successful.
learn?
Yeah.
If my uncle always said, but, and when you said about your dad telling you that, see, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's always the same for everybody. My grandfather, when my uncle was little, he said, "Bud, we're cutting cabbage today." "Okay, Dad." He says, "You got to be a row and a half ahead of the workers." "Why, Dad?" He says, "'Cause you're the boss's kid." I mean, I don't. That's kind of how the conversation. You know what I'm saying? He says, because if you're a row and a half ahead of them, they're going to work harder because they don't want to get beat by you.
Yeah.
Right? Just like your dad telling you, no, you got to get down in the trenches, son. You got to lead down there. You got to figure out how they're doing it, and you got to be better than them. Mm-hmm. Same thing, right? Yeah. I mean, it's but that's how you learn. That's how you get that work ethic.
Yeah.
And I know what you do for the school district, and that's one of the toughest jobs to me, because you're basically dealt a losing hand every day, but it's how you change the cards up to make your day go.
Yeah.
And that kid's day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's tough, and people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's, people are going to have to, they got to work no matter what. I see kids, you see them football, I see them even in some of these girls at softball.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do when you get out of high school?
Yeah.
I mean, you're 18 years old, you can vote. You can't drink yet, but you can vote. Your parents going to continue to coddle you and just let you stay home and do nothing?
Yeah.
Or I remember years ago, Eddie, the latest iPhone was coming out. We had this kid at football, and I said, and he acted like he was really poor, And I was like, "Where do you get that Apple?" He goes, "Yeah, I just got a new Apple Watch." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." Or Apple phone, I should say then, And he's wearing these nice tinny, but he acting like he's poor as dirt, Oh, man, it takes care of me. I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, she's a nurse. She never had no kids, but she loves me." And I'm like, she's just spoiling this kid, And he wasn't a bad kid, don't get me wrong, but it's like he had everything he could want and didn't have to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
you and me. We had, hey, my dad, my brothers were book smarter than me and smarter than me. I'd burn through my money. I'd like to spend it because I didn't think I'd ever get old enough to where I saved it, right? And I needed anything. I needed a jacket today, so I'm going to get a jacket. So anyway, about wintertime, I was out of dough. Now, lunch money was one thing, But, yeah, so I told my dad, "Hey, Dad, I want to go to the show, and can I borrow $5?" He's, "Okay. Yeah, you can borrow $5. Give me $5. Until I mean, we work Saturdays, but he didn't really take the money on the Saturday paychecks. But summertime, when you got a weekly check, he take his little black book out. "Okay, you owe me this, and that." He wrote everything down. I had to repay him, because he was trying to teach me
accountability.
Accountability, and hey, you got to watch your money. My two brothers were a lot more frugal than I were, and we were just different. So my dad, but I always had to pay him back. And it took me a few years to realize, okay, do I really need this, or am I going to need this when I want to go to the movies in late December or January? You know what I mean? So eventually I did learn, but you just give kids this.
Yeah.
They have no respect for it. They have no respect for, I just say, I'll ask my mom, or I'll ask my dad, or I'll ask my auntie or my grandma,
Yeah.
And it's a generation that my generation, when I see grandparents and stuff, no, they're more my generation. They know listen, you got to do this, this, and that. You get this.
Yeah.
But a newer, I don't know all the XYG and all that stuff, whatever it is. But, people that are, let's say 45 or less, there's too many of them that are just, here,
Yeah.
okay, you have this. I mean, they all got phones. They all got this. It's like,
did you work for it?
Right?
Yeah.
No, we're just giving it to them so that we can know where they're at. Hell, when we were going around Watsonville, my mom always knew where we were at. I mean, we'd say, Mom, we're going to so-and-so's house.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me know if you go somewhere else. Okay. But like I said earlier, all the mothers and the grandmothers sitting on the porch, they knew where you were at. Yeah. They knew all the kids, And if you did go to somebody else's house, you got on a landline, you called, hey, Mom, I'm over here. Okay, just want to know where you're at.
Yeah.
That's all. But nowadays, I saw a deal the other day, and it was one of those over the years, communication-wise. And you always communicated with your friends for years and years and years and years and years, and then it started changing in the 90s, early 2000s with the internet. And now the internet is like, that's what everybody goes to.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm part of the problem sometimes too, I see it. I notice it, But yeah, my dad, again, my dad, you learn everything from your parents.
Right.
Or we're eating or we're out and about eating. It's like, put your phones away. No phones while you're eating. It's, respect. It's conversation.
Bro, we go in the dugout for a water break yesterday. Every time we go for a water break, run in and get your water. Half of them are on their phones right away. Oh, what's going on?
Really?
Oh, my God.
During a game?
No, just practice yesterday.
Oh, okay.
But every time you take a water break, if you walk in there and look, half of them got their phones to their face like this.
I would be like, heck no phones.
Oh.
I remember a couple of times we had some players, they were out, and they had their phone, they're there and they had their phone, earplug in, listening to music. Like, what are you doing? Listening to music? Nice practice, man.
Right.
Like, put that phone away.
Pay
whether
attention.
you're playing or not, you're in the zone. This is
right.
Sacred time.
That's right.
So
it's right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah. There's got to be a reset somewhere.
Yeah. How do you reset? How do you, as a business owner, you're coaching, what does Gary Manfre do to just kind of round himself back to basics? Because you're on the go all the time.
That's what my wife says. She said, you need to slow down. And I said, well, okay. Now, that's from a woman that goes faster than I go, So how do I reset? I don't know. I just I get home sometimes and I just try to I'll talk to my wife and stuff. But like last night we said because I try to go to sleep at 9. 9 o'clock is my bedtime. But
yeah.
At our age, we're like laying on our heating pads because our backs hurt and shit like that, But last night I said, well, let's watch something. We got a time for maybe a movie, or something. And she says, okay, so we'll get on Netflix and there's this Breakpoint. Is it Breakpoint or Point Break? Breakpoint. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
And it's a 10 episode little deal. And I said, well, she reads it, and I said, well, if you want to watch that, let's watch it. Oh, my God, Eddie. It's freaking hilarious. And we are there in bed, and we are laughing our asses off. She finally looks at me, and she goes, that was a pretty good pick, huh? And I said, yeah. So to me, it's the little things in life, Excuse me. The little things in life are, because we don't get a lot of time. Because when I'm not doing something, she's doing something for grandkids or for the school. As you know, she cooks the snack bar. She does a snack bar for football, and when there's meets out there now, Joe has a tendency to call her and ask her to come do snack bar for the track meets. When there's like 4 or 5 schools there, so she can't say no either. But we get that hour and a half, and we just laughing and having fun, and it just, to me, laughter and music, it calms the soul.
Yeah,
at least for me.
Yeah.
I love music too. I like oldies because it's music.
Yeah.
And
I was reading. I scroll on social media, and there's a lot of funny videos that they poke at. So for me, oldies is, oldies to me is like Motown 70s, 60s, 50s. But now, this younger generation, like oldies is 2000s. I'm like, that's my generation. That's still new to me,
right?
It's like, no, oldies for me is anything from like 80s, 70s and 60s. And all
right.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, my kids, I love that music. I brought them up on that music. They love that music. I actually have an 8-year-old great niece who told her mom they were listening to oldies music, and she told her mom that's Uncle Gary's music. I said, what? I was told the story later, and I said, what? She goes, yeah. Cora says, that's Uncle Gary's music. I like that music. So the reason it's so good, you had the big band there, you had some swing and jazz, but when rock and roll really hit, well, let's not take it away from before that, but when rock and roll hit, it kind of put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, I've talked to a lot of people that are musicians and know this, and if you look at all that rap that came on later on, disco, all that stuff, the bass was basically rock and roll, the notes and the sounds just put together differently. And so there's I don't know, and again, I'm not a professional, but I don't know if there's ever in the last 20 or 30 or 40 years if there's been any actually new music.
Mm-hmm.
There's different lyrics, there's different beats, there's different sounds. They quicken it up and they slow it down, right? But it's still, rock and roll was it's kind of like the Bible of music,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember because I know they sample a lot of music nowadays and just rap over it or sing over it or just do covers.
Right.
So that,
and country's still country.
Yeah.
I like some country. For years, it was always about your truck running over your dog or something like that. But it's changed a little bit. Got a little bit more rock and roll in it. And
a little bit more modern-ish.
Yeah. So country, I like country too. I had to make a little fun of it, but well, rock and roll, you could say rock and roll was the psychedelic era, some of it, and a lot of LSD, a lot of dope. So, you could punch fun at all of it, but no, it's kind of the Bible for it, I think, for music, generations now, generations,
Where do you see yourself? Right, you're 71 years old. You gonna retire soon, or you just keep on going? No. Keep on going until
my wife says you need to retire, and I said no. Why not? It's what I do.
That's what you love.
Well, and I said I had a conversation with one of my twins the other day, and he was kind of being, I'll just use the term, he was kind of being a jerk, And he looks at me and goes, "But Dad, that's what I love to do." Give me a hard time is what he loves to do, right? So, no, I love going to work. I love the people. I've always felt you have to lead by example. It affords me, my wife wants to go on vacation. We can go on vacation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not like we can't do the things that we want to do. It's just that I'm not built to stay home and do yard work every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I need to go work and see how everybody's doing and see what's going on. And we, as we get older, we don't know how much longer we're going to live. But my grandfather, Capurro, he was farming. He was driving his tractor till he was 89 years old. And that's when he retired.
Yeah.
Died a year later. So, if I don't want to retire today and die a year from now. So I want to work as long as I can.
Keep on going.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And where do you see Watsonville Coast Produce going?
That's a great question. We've had niches over the years, and I think that in today's world, we're looking again for that certain niche. Whether it's adding people or taking people away, I'm not really sure, because things are getting more specialized. Mm-hmm. You've got companies that were big companies to begin with that are now bigger because they've been bought up by a big company, or the Ciscos of the world are big, and there's more. Instead of having 10 competitors in a certain area, now you got 3, mm-hmm. because there's only 3 left because 2 of those 3 bought up the other ones.
Yeah. And
this little guy in the middle is still there. So I think there's a new identity that has to come out.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. And I hope we're still around for a while, for sure. But yeah, we're trying to get through that maze of where we're heading.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish I could tell you what it was. And like I told my guys, if I was that smart, I would have retired 49 years ago, because I would have been a millionaire then, right?
Yeah.
So you're constantly trying to figure it out. Yeah, and that's another thing. I like keep my mind busy,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they say that keeping the mind active and going is what kind of keeps you young, keeps you sane, keeps you
right.
Keeps the body parts moving.
Well, that and the fact that I'm still coaching, I'm blessed to be able to do that, because the youth. Mm-hmm. Like yesterday at softball, I looked at our head coach, Daisy, and one of the girls, something happened, and they said something, and Daisy and I kind of looked at each other, and we kind of smiled, and then the kid went back out, and I said, "Isn't it crazy? Youth is wasted on the youth." Because your youth would have been a lot better if you lived it knowing what you know now.
Exactly, right? Exactly. We kind of touched on that a little bit, the coaching and all that, but what got you into coaching?
Tony Caliente. Tony was coaching the Pop Warner Packers back in the 70s. Well, Don was one of the guys that I think helped started it, and a lot of good people in Watsonville. And anyway, Tony was the head coach, and I saw him one day, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "You off in the afternoons?" I said, "Yeah," because we go to work at 3 a.m, but, we're off by 12, 1, maybe 2. So I said, "Yeah." He said, "You want to coach?" And I said, "Sure." So I coached a couple of years with some great guys there. And then I didn't coach until I got in the 80s. A friend of mine, I started coaching Pony League baseball with him. His kid played for a couple of years. And then I coached a little bit of a couple of years of Colt League. Then I had my own kids. And then in the 90s, started coaching Little League, all that stuff. And then I coached high school football for the last 30 years and 35 years. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had fun. Eddie, shame on me. I used to chew tobacco back in those days.
Yeah.
Red Man. And I remember the kid would come out in his brand new shoes to practice for Pop Warner. I said, "What? Got brand new shoes out here?" and I'd have a big wad of tobacco, and I'd boom, right on their feet, Coach, Coach. Then they look at it, that's pretty cool, Coach, So that generation I was coaching, they were still kind of those tough kids, and
Can't do that now.
right, right, and but we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had great kids, and I want people to know this from Watsonville. So we had kids that went to Watsonville High, Aptos High, played football and some of them other sports, but played football at Santa Clara, San Jose State, Princeton.
Yeah.
Kids, we had a kid that actually ended up with the 49ers for 1 year and got a Super Bowl ring. But these kids, the one thing about them is they were good kids, tough kids, but they're good men.
Mm-hmm.
They have families. They've all done well. You see them. You still have a young career, but 10 years from now, when you've had those kids that got out of high school, and you're going to see them on the road somewhere. And the greatest thing is when you hear Coach, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And you're like going, "What?" And then you look and say, "Coach, you remember me?" "Yeah, how you doing?" And then you start reminiscing. You find out what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a quick one. I think you'll like this. So 2 of these kids that played Pop Warner for me, I went to a friend's house in Hollister. This is just a couple of years ago. And he didn't play Pop Warner, but these 2 guys did.
Yeah.
And it was his daughter or son's graduation from high school. We went over there. And then I see these kids that played for me, right? And the guy, the guy's house it was, he says, "Yeah, you came walking in." They looked over and said, "Oh shit, Coach is going to tell us to get down and give me a 20." Now this is 40 years later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we're in a position we can mold lives.
Yeah.
One of the softball coaches, she's 21, so she's still young, and we were talking about how do you talk to the girls, and it's not just the girls. I shouldn't say that. How do you talk to your players?
Yeah.
That haven't played the game, and how do you? She says, "I know what I want to tell them, but I just sometimes to me it doesn't sound like it's coming out the right way."
Yeah.
I said, "Relax, just tell them."
Mm-hmm.
Don't, because I've done that before. I overthink things.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute. And then I'll say it, and it's like, oh, yeah, that did sound like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So don't overthink it. Just say, okay, what are we working on? A lot of times you got to ask them. You got to engage them, right? And 10, 15 years later, when you see them and they say that to you, it just gives you a sense of pride.
Yeah.
That you're molding somebody and you're teaching them life lessons.
And what people don't know a lot of the times is that we don't say it, but as youth we want it. We want that. We crave that that guidance. And we get it from our parents. We love our parents and we get it, but sometimes we want that from a different perspective.
Well, my dad, your dad, they don't know shit when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
Or your mom, right?
Yeah.
Nah, you don't know what's going on. I'm 7 years old. I know everything in the world. My point, we eventually start to realize that our parents are telling us the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and we do listen to them, but we're stubborn when they try to drill stuff into us.
Yeah.
But like you just said, if a coach says that to you, eventually you go, my dad told me that, but now the coach told me that, it must be true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had a father, one of our players, tell me that no, hey, I'm with you. I tell him this stuff, but I'm his dad. He don't listen to me. And again, that's a generational thing. That's just human nature.
Yeah.
We don't want to be. But you're right. The girls, I talked about those 8 freshmen. They want to learn because they'll say, "Thank you, coach." A lot different than coaching boys. The boys will say thank you, but it's just different, because you're a guy and I'm a guy. We know how to handle guys, but with the girls, it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But they look genuinely. They look you in the eye and they say thank you. Yes, I do want to get better. Yes, I will listen to you. Yes, and so they do that, and it gives you energy to give them more.
Keep on going.
Yeah, to keep on going. Our over and unders this year for wins is 4 wins this year. That's what I'm thinking in the league. We're going to get 4 wins. And you would say, "Oh, that's not very good. And why don't you tell them you're going to win every game?" Because we're honest with them, and they look around. We say, "Look around. We got 8 freshmen. You've never caught a ball, never thrown a ball.
Yeah.
How many games do you think we're going to win?" "No, we're not going to win, coach." "No. But are we going to have fun?" "Yes, we are."
Yeah.
"Are we going to learn every day?" "Yes, we are."
Yep.
And we played a team. We played Monte Vista on Monday, got whooped, and didn't realize it until yesterday. We were talking about it. Well, we're going to play Monte Vista in, I think Daisy said, the end of April or something like that.
Yeah.
And we all said they're not going to see the same team. They might see the same faces, but they will not see the same team.
Yeah.
Because you give us 6 weeks with these girls and what they're doing, they might still beat us, but they're going to know that
Yeah.
that's not the same team we beat before.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at building. We have some good core players, but when you start 5 freshmen, never played the game, we don't get travel ball kids. We don't get that. You know that with football. We don't get anybody that plays football, right? All flag football, which is flag football, which is good.
Yeah.
But it's not tackle football.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we always starting with?
Yeah.
Scratch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's probably why I love coaching and why I love where we're at, PV.
Yeah.
It's an underdog story.
Mm-hmm.
We're completely underdogs. I tell people, we're the redheaded stepchild.
Right? There you go. Yeah.
And so when we come and we kick some ass,
we had some games last year where we won more games than they thought we would.
Yeah. Put some respect on
We
the
had a
name.
couple games towards the end. I missed one of them, but I know we should have won or had a chance to win, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people, and it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's that bottom tier that you work on
Mm-hmm.
to build.
Yeah.
I mean, our coach, when I said to her, I said, "Listen, these girls are the future. This is what you build with."
Mm-hmm.
And she says, "Oh, that's right, huh? That's how you got to build from the bottom." I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Now, if you just have class after class that comes in, I mean, around here, most of the softball traveling teams, they go to Aptos or Watsonville.
Yeah.
None of them come to PV. Football, it's Aptos and been for years. Where if you could live downtown Watsonville, but you're going to Aptos to play football if you think you're going to be good. And then it goes to Watsonville, and then we get one player that, I mean, like last year with how many 20 freshmen or whatever, one player played Pop Warner. That's what we get.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like you. It's the underdog story, and we have a chance to mold these kids and make them something.
Yeah. Make them young men.
Exactly.
So.
And hopefully win more football games than we lose.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, they're only in high school 4 years.
Yeah.
The next 60 years of their life, they're not in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So we're that group of people that are fortunate enough to try to help and make these kids better citizens, better parents when they become parents,
Yeah.
it could be only one thing that we teach them or that they learn from us that they save. But that might be an important piece of their life.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. That sums up coaching right there.
Right? Yeah. If you're coaching for wins and losses, you're not there for the right reason. Yeah. You're not there for the right reason. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Gary, before we kind of wrap things up, I always tell my guests, like, what is one piece of advice you give to the viewers, whoever's watching this? It doesn't have to be football, business. What are you leaving people with? What words of wisdom? What are you sending them off with?
I think that we just, as a whole, all of us, is when you get up in the morning, do the best you can each day. If you're working, work hard. Your boss, he may or may not be rich, but he's the one that's got everything on the line. Respect him for that.
Mm-hmm.
He's helping pay your bills. You're earning it. Don't get me wrong. You're earning it, but that's where you're getting money, and you should always be grateful for that. Judge people by their character, not by the color of their skin, if they're big or small or short or tall. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Right? Look at their character. Don't judge them until you know them. And if you don't like their character, if you don't like being around them, then don't associate yourself with them. Yeah. It's very easy. We have choices in our lives. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an asshole, go hang out with the assholes. If you want to be a good person, go hang out with a good person. Mm-hmm. It's choices, right, Eddie? Yeah. And don't blame anybody but yourself, because you have a choice. You're doing this. You love this. It's a passion of yours. Yeah. That's what people need to do. If you have a passion and you want to be the owner of the company, find your passion and put the time and energy and the sweat into it and the money, because it does take money, mm-hmm. but it takes a lot of hard work. And I tell kids, especially that, because my dad told me this. I've kind of changed it a little bit, but my dad always used to say, any asshole can get in a fight. It takes a man to walk away from one. Mm-hmm. Young kid, I don't know what that means, but I found out what it means, right, Eddie? At your age, you know what you absorbed that and said, yeah, that's very true. And then I tell kids, it's easy to go the wrong way. To go the right way is the hardest. Yeah. Because you have to work at it. You have to focus. Anybody can just sit home and play video games all day long. What are you doing? Yeah. Then next thing you know, you're 25, your mom and dad passed away, and you got to get a job. Well, you have no skills. I mean, your thumbs might be in good shape, but you have no skills. Yeah. Bounce your life. I'm not saying you can't play video games, but realize that there is a big world out there, and eventually you're going to have to make your own decisions for yourself, and those decisions are going to take you down the path that you're going to go in life. Yeah. As I was told a long time ago, that as parents, when you have kids, your job is not to try to make a path for them. As they're growing up, your job is just to try to smooth the path out a little bit, because they have to go over those bumps and they have to go around those curves. Yeah. But you just kind of guide them a little bit. Can't do it for them, because if you do it for them,
you're not going to learn.
You're going to burn your hand a lot. So I guess, just and if you want to be treated right or respected, then you respect people around you. Yeah. And try to do it. Common sense. We don't have a lot of people don't have common sense in this day and age. oh, it's that guy's fault or it's their fault, that company's fault. No, it's think about the whole situation.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to do with it? Oh, not me. Well, yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times in California, we're a lot of people are driven, so their days are just go, 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 go. We don't take that time to sit back and say, okay, what did I do today that affected my day in a positive way or affected it in a negative way?
Yeah.
Look inside yourself and don't judge other people, judge yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Well, dang. That's a lot to soak in, but it's so right. It's so rich, and I think that's perfect.
Yeah, because, people say, he's brown, he's black, he's yellow, he's orange. Doesn't matter. It's what you got here and in here.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You could take this business that you're creating right now, and in 10 years, you could blow this thing up.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to do that because you were brown?
No.
Hell no.
It's because you work hard.
You got that
you
right,
got
brother.
A vision. You got a
Right?
vision. You work hard.
And so I that just goes back to what I said. Just, look inside. It just, what can I do better?
Yeah.
And I mean, I have those talks. I talk to myself a lot. Even
Yeah.
sometimes something will come into my mind, and I'm in the bathroom, washing my face or getting it ready to take a shower, and I'll say a couple things to myself, right? And my wife's in the bed, and she goes,
okay?
"Who are you talking to in there?" I says, "I'm talking to myself because I want to have a good conversation with a smart person."
Oh, wow. That's good.
So, yeah, you do. You have to, you got to talk to yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need to talk out loud.
Yeah.
Usually I don't talk out loud at work, but usually at home I do it.
I think Gary's losing it. I think it's time to retire, Gary.
Exactly.
Well, Gary, I really appreciate you coming on, and sharing so much knowledge and wisdom and just experience, your life experiences. I think that's key. I think that we continue to soak up knowledge and wisdom from the older generation, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate this.
Well, on that point, it's just like your dad. You made me think about your dad being out of PV High School. The guys out there, they're molding kids. And I see your dad, I see Caesar, I see Rafa. Every day when I'm walking on campus to go coach. And everybody thinks their job is, they're the old days, they're the narcs, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. There's so much more. I see them interact with the kids. And they're just as important as you and I coaching football, if not more so.
Yeah.
So respect what people do. And just don't think that you're always got it tougher than they do.
Yeah.
We all have it tough. That's all. But I wanted to just point that out because your dad, he's given wisdom, and those kids listen to him, most of them.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing that he's there.
Mm-hmm.
We all know they don't make no money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what they do is they have a passion for it, and they could be out there and just say, "Hey, kid, get over here." Blah, blah, blah. No, I've seen them interact with kids. Those three guys for sure, and they get respect.
Yeah. Hopefully one day I could be half the man he is.
Right.
So
no, that's right. And so you look when you're young. You don't look at your parents as being those. You probably had the dad that everybody else liked, and you're going, "My dad's an asshole," or "My dad's tough," But all your buddies are like, "No, your dad's the coolest."
it's funny because my dad's been working as and I'm not gonna get my dad on my show. He knows that.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
I'm gonna get him on. But I always one things I hear a lot is are you Ed's dad? I mean, Ed's son? Are you the security son? And it's like, how's your dad doing? That's like one of the first things I hear a lot. And my dad's been working for like 20 plus years. So I get like people random like, hey, you look like, you know, security that I used to work in my school. I was like, oh, that's my dad probably. Ed, yeah. I was like, oh, you know. So hopefully I can get to that level.
Well, and you know, I call your dad Easy Ed, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I call him Easy Ed is because he's smooth around there. He slides around, but I see him, you know, when the bikes. When they got the carts, they were all like, I don't know, man. I might have to get my bike back out. but I think they like the carts.
Yeah.
But anyway, I call him Easy Ed because he's easy to talk to. He's easy with the kids. I see how he's doing, you know. So, you know, out of respect, I mean, and you know me, I like to give everybody nicknames, you know.
Yeah.
But out of respect, because, I mean, that's a tough job. No?
Yeah.
That's a real tough job.
Yeah.
And I've heard kids yell at those guys, and I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't make one day doing this job because I'd grab a kid by the throat and pull his Adam's apple out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, flipping the F words and just, you know, they know you can't do anything.
Yeah.
I just would not be able to handle it. It takes a special person.
Yeah.
And that's why we're all different people. We have different functions. But if we do our jobs properly, the community functions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a village.
The village, you know, it takes a village, but it that's how things work.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the more you know that. Eddie.
Yeah.
The more you learn.
One day.
Right.
Gary, again, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for coming on. I glad that we had this conversation, that people are going to be able to watch this.
I appreciate you having me. As you know, we did like a little pre-deal.
Yeah, a little mock-up, you know.
And because I can talk to anybody and everybody, but I've never been a speaker,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And to me, that's definitely two different
Oh, yeah,
things.
for sure. For sure.
I mean, I have friends that they could be in a room with 1,000 people, and by the end of the night, they know everybody on a first-name basis, and they also can stand in front of a crowd and give a speech. No, I could do the first part. I can't do the second part.
Yeah.
But you made me feel comfortable, and I greatly appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Guys, look out for this show, this episode. Well, you're watching it. But thanks for watching, guys. Gary Manfre, Watsonville Coast Produce, business owner here in Watsonville. I'll see you guys in the next one. Gary, thank you again.
You're welcome, Eddie.
God bless, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all.